walk you through how I place foils in my foil placement. So this side, I'm going to do a pivot where I go from an angle and pivot horizontal. This side, I'm gonna do more of all diagonal back so that you can kind of see the difference of each side of what the points of light can do and how it can change how you want to place your foils. And then the back, I'm going to do just how I do like my traditional foiling in the back. So I'm going to section her down the middle. The nose. And then usually, oh boy, this is gonna drive me crazy. There we go. Usually I like to take the sides, where if you take the hair, the section on the side, push up, where it naturally starts to split, right there. That is where I like to section. And it's usually always right around the ear. But if this hair here wants to live there, but you pull it back, or if this hair wants to live back here and you pull it forward, it doesn't live where it wants to be. So it's not going to live there. So we want to section it to where the hair lives there. Same thing on the other side. Okay. And I'm going to start in the back. If somebody wants like a heavy foil, I'll just do smaller sections. But back here in the back section, I usually like to kind of follow the hairline on the sides and in the middle, and then I'll do V sections like that to kind of angle and soften, and then I'll go horizontal, V, horizontal, and then once I get up to here where I can fit a foil in on the top without having to do two foils, I'll just do horizontal up. Okay. So back here, if you're doing a full foil, I like to follow the hairline from where it sections and go down till it creates that V. And then in the middle there, have that foil, I'll place a foil there as well. If somebody's just doing a partial foil, I would skip this and just start right at like the crown or like a little bit below the crown. Or if somebody has like a little bit of grown out hair and they just want some depth through, like they just don't like the dark hole back here, I might just add a few foils back here, leave this dark, and then foil the top. So here when sectioning, I'm just taking from where that hairline, that corner is, taking it out. If you want to be more precise, you can do the line, leave that out, and then foil. But back here, the section is small enough to where I can go in and just apply it, because you want the foil to go all the way up to the root. If you take too big of a section, it won't go all the way up to the root, and that's when you know you need to take a smaller section. And then keeping the foil angled. If that happens or it like bubbles up, like up in there, I will pull and push the foil kind of back up. And then you can also use the brush to kind of pull it back down as well. And pull it back down. And then I'll show you the next one. Got that done. Now we're going to do this side to where take that corner off. To where now I'm going to go in, pull it directly out from that section and just foil that. Tease it a little bit. So where the tease comes right out, I just like to do the teasing just to soften it. Again, I'm holding the foil out at the same angle as the foil, this section. From where I sectioned it, I'm holding the foil to that same section. And if you're saturating and you're, I did a 1 to 1.5 ratio for the lightener. To where it's not too thick, I'm able to apply it nicely still, but it's not too runny, so it holds the foil. And then here too, I don't have any lightener on this bottom part of the foil there, so I'm able to use that and push it up without adding more folds or creases to the foil. And then here, holding it out as well. Doing just a few little weaves, teasing it back just a little bit, just to create some softness. And then I will apply that, pull up for elevation. Using elevation in foiling creates softness, so it's a lot like balayaging. So I'm creating softness as well by elevating. And sometimes I'll just flick it back to kind of blur that line too. Or taking like my hand and just blurring it like that as well works too. And then again, I didn't get the ends of the foil super messy, so I can fold it up to where I'm not creating any creases. And I'm not sealing this bottom foil, because if I were to go in like here and like push right there really hard, it moves the bleach. So then you're not lightening that area where the hair is at. So I don't ever press right here on the end of the foil. So now here, I have the hairline. I'm gonna go straight across, more horizontal. And right in here, you don't have to go up to the scalp so much unless you're doing a super heavy foil, but this hair isn't going to be shown because of these foils here. If the person has thicker density, you might need to do like a few more of these foils following this sectioning. You might have to do like 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here to match it. And then once you get up to like the occipital area, then you can do this foil here. But I'm just gonna go in, not too thick of a section to where you can still see through it. Like my hand is still, so it's going to lighten nicely. You don't want to take any sections and it's still up to the root nicely. You don't want your sections to be all different sizes of like the thickness, because then it'll all lighten different. So you want all of the hairs that are in the foil to be about the same consistency so that it all lightens nicely. And then again, if the person doesn't necessarily want like a super heavy foil, you don't have to spend too much time going up to the root. Because back here you're not going to see it. And then again, no lightener there, so I'm just going to fold that up and fold it in the sides. Okay. And now I'm going to do another V section. I'm going to go a little bit above this foil and then just meet it in the middle of this foil here. And it's about the same, it's probably like an inch or so here too, to match it. And then I'm gonna do the other thing, the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna pull this section out from where it's laying, right? Same diagonal, pulling it straight out from the section. I'm gonna go in. I don't go through the whole section when I'm weaving it out. I just do only that much throughout it. So if it makes it easier for you to go through and slice, take the section and just go like this through the top of it and then go in and weave, you can do that as well. It's kind of just up to you. And then here to where the hair on the corners, I will fold it to the head shape. If their head's too big, you might need to take smaller sections. And then here I'm just brushing it back to kind of blur that. And then elevating to create softness. Again on this side, pulling it out from the section, weaving right just like a 1/4 inch down to where that creates depth for the rest of the section. Creates. Now I'm gonna turn her so I can do better. Okay. And then the key with foiling too is making sure that you're saturating nicely and evenly. If your saturation is not consistent and your sectioning isn't consistent, then it's all going to lift not consistently. So now it's getting too high. My arms are too high, so I'm going to lower her down. And now I did a V that last section, so I'm going to go in and do a horizontal. So I'm going to do in the middle of this foil and the middle of that foil. So I start here in the middle, go horizontal. To where this is going to create a nice, because wherever foils are placed is where you're going to see them, right? It's the same with balayaging. Wherever you see the light is where it's going to be. Big. So like here, I'll slice this. And weave. So when I lay a foil, I have the weaved hair in my hand. I put the bottom of the foil in my hand, put my hand where my pinky is, and I flip the foil over it, tuck that in, saturate, to where now I can lock it in. If I lift that up, I can tuck it over and then lock it in. Okay. Now now I'm going to do another V section to the middle of that foil, to the other side. So depending on the person's density, if the foil is too wide and it's over directing, you'll get bleeding that way, so you just want to take smaller sections if that's the case. So like with this mannequin, this section in this foil, I'll show you here, to where the hair is there in the middle, but then too loose over here. If I had wanted to go all the way up to the root here, I would want to take smaller sections and maybe break this up into 2 sections, so that the hair over here isn't being over directed to the middle. Because if that gets loose at all, it can create bleeding and you'll get spotting. To where that's not all the way up to the root quite yet. Okay, and then do the other side. Point out. You can see I'm only doing that top little piece. Sometimes instead of teasing, I'll just tease once I put the foil in. Saturate. This is how I do like 90% of my foiling behind the head. Just because it's so simple and I can either add more, take less, do less, if they have a bigger head or they have a higher density, I can then just take smaller sections or bigger sections. Depth-wise, if they have more hair, I might take smaller sections so I can get more in. Or if they just want like a super soft, subtle look, then I don't have to place so many foils. So now I'm going to go from the middle of this foil to the middle of that foil, do horizontal. So now that I am above the crest, I'm going to be taking the sections closer up to the root. So now I'm not going to be taking sections that are wider to where the foil around the head shape, where the hair is being over directed to be in the foil. I don't want to do that now up here because I'm getting closer up to the root, and if I do that, that'll create bleeding. And then again to the middle of this back foil, or just to the middle of the head too. And then going up from there to where this will probably be my last V section. And then I'll just go horizontal from here. So we're holding it out from the section. So if you notice, I don't apply straight up to the root at first. I apply like an inch or so down from the root, saturate nicely, and then I can go back in and kind of blur. but keeping it still nice and saturated. Again, not ever pressing down here, because then it won't get that fully saturated section here. Now I'm just going to go in and take from the middle of this foil to the middle of, kind of middle-ish, horizontal sectioning. I'm taking my foil, putting it in my hand, using my pinky and my ring finger to fold the foil over. So like it's the fastest way to get a foil in, and then you're able to still lock it in nicely once it's on. And then saturate, and kind of blur. Don't need to spend too much time blurring because you'll just get faster at it. But you don't want to spend too much time doing it, because if you do it for too long, you're just pulling the bleach off to where it's not gonna lift very nicely. To where it's gonna dry out faster than the rest, so the blur might look really good when you're getting it on, but then once you go to pull it, it's not lifted as much as like at the ends, because you didn't saturate, or when you were doing your nice blurring, you pulled too much of the bleach down to where it doesn't get an even saturation, to where it's not going to evenly lift. So I don't like, there we go, we'll do this. So here on the top of her head, I could, I could either do one more V section and just do like, could do like another V section and do that, which I think that's what I'm gonna do. Or I could split it to where she has like cowlicks, wherever her hair splits in the back, I'll just take two sections and separate these and foil up, but making sure that I place the foils at the same. But here, her hair falls pretty nicely here, or actually, I'm going to do it off of where it's falling apart, where it's splitting. So you can either do a V here, but since it's not straight in the middle, I'm going to do it off this section over here. So this section's bigger than this one. But I'm going to go in still at a diagonal back. Foil. I'm adding more hair to it because I don't like how close this point is to that. Just going in. So now, I'm going to do the other side to match that. You can see where it's going to lay. Match the diagonal and where the section would start together, where it matches. I'm pulling it straight out. Oh, so this one is just bigger because it's a wider section, just because it's wider on this side than the other side. So it's going to look like more hair. It's the same depth, it's just a little bit wider of a section because of how her hair splits in the back. To keep my brushes pretty clean, just keeps everything else cleaner as you go along, so when you do go up to like blur, your brushes are nice and clean and they're not all caked on with product. So the edge of my bowl, I have it all just like loaded up onto the side. So I'll mix it up and I'll just set it on the side so that when I go, I just take a ribbon of lightener off. I don't need that much right now though, but I'll just take like a little bit just to go in at the root to help blur it. You don't want to do too much because if it's too thick and cakey, then that'll also bleed. So just finding that perfect amount of lightener to saturation is key with foiling. Okay, so now usually we use our comb to find the head shape during haircuts. I also like to use it for foiling. So sometimes if the section seems too big, I might use it. So like on the top of her head right now, where it lifts off, seeing how much of over direction it's going to cause. So for here, the comb sits there, right? But then it still has that section and that section. So it's way too big of a section still for the round of the mannequin's head. So if I were to just put a foil here, this section on the hair over here and the hair over here is being over directed too far to where it's going to be harder to lock the foil in and it's going to create bleeding. So if the foil like falls and you flip it up or anything and it comes back down and it falls out really easily, it's going to create bleeding. So we're still going to take 2 sections for the top of the head. So again, right where that is splitting right here, that is where I'm going to foil. And the other side. So now we've got the back done. Do this side and do the pivoting. Usually when you put the comb on the side where it lifts off, so like right about here, which is also like right at the temple, right, is where I'm going to start my section. So this is right at the parietal ridge is where I'm going to create my section. If the client wants a money piece, I always do that first. Or if it's a subtle money piece, I just add it into the sectioning as I go along. It just depends on the look that I'm doing for the client. So right here, I'm going to use this point right here, and I'm going to go along her hairline and pivot each section until I'm horizontal. So this right here is going to create different points of lights. So when it's down, you see it'll be softer because when the hair is down, you can see that since it's diagonal back, you'll still see it nice and bright, but it's going to be diffused because it's not a straight horizontal line. So it's going to be super soft. So depending on the person's hairline here, you can see I don't want to go straight to her hairline. I want to do a little one before that to where it's still angling to her hairline or to that point, but I'm not quite starting right at the point, especially if the hairline were to come down lower on the face, but I'm still doing the same diagonal. So I'm going to do the same, holding the section out at the same angle, taking the foil, again, a lot of time saturating, or not saturating. I used to spend a lot of time blurring my lines, especially up at the top. I don't spend too much time doing it now just because I can get it just here. So this, see how that's falling? I'm going to pick it up, angle it, and brush the hair down. Better. So it's angled. Sometimes I'll use like the client's face, or you can get a board so you're not on the client's face. Okay. Now, from this point again, I'm going to take this section to that point. Foil. Sometimes I'll turn the client's head too, or make them look down, so that since I'm angled and my shoulders are kind of like tilted, I'll ask the client to look down so that's less of an angle for me and I can stand straight up. So it's not too much. I just had her tilt her head down just a little bit, like how you would a haircut. Having them tilt their head down so that you can keep standing straight, so you're not hurting your body all the time. Okay, so now again, from this point, I'm going to do another section where probably do like one more there and then another one there, to where it just slowly gets to be horizontal. So here I took out an extra section just because I didn't want it to be blonde on blonde. So I want some dimensions still and some softness so where it doesn't get too blonde. So just being visual too, of thinking, okay, if this is going to lay like this, what do I want this underneath of it to help look? What do I want that to look like as well? That's something you have to think about as well. And then it's horizontal, so she's looking down a little bit. So when she's looking straight, that's horizontal. And you can see I didn't have to pack a whole bunch of foils. And so when I show you when I'm done, what this looks like, it'll be nice and bright without, I only had to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foils. Instead of doing like a ton of foils all the way up or the side of her head, I'm only doing 5 foils. And this works too even on someone with a lot of hair, and especially because this is going to cover this, so you don't have to over foil down here because this is going to cover it. And you don't want this to be super blonde with this being blonde on top, like super blonde up here. You kind of want this dimension to make this look lighter. Okay. Sometimes you can like tip this out if you want it to be more, if the client wants it to be more solid on their ends. You can always go through, tease this a little bit, directing it forward so that it creates elevation, which creates softness. If you wanted to then go ahead and tip that out, either in a foil or out of a foil, you can do that as well, just to create more solidness throughout her ends, to where she wants dimension in here, but then solid on her ends. That's how you would achieve that, is by making this solid as well. Okay, now we're going to do the front. Again, depending on if they wanted a money piece or not, I might just take this whole section and do like her whole hairline so it's all in like one foil. But now I'm not doing that. So I'm going to take, now the new point of light is where her part is, here. So I'm going to take this section here along her hairline. If I were to go in and do like horizontal sectioning, I like to still do this front piece so that when she pulls it back, it doesn't have stripes. Because if you think about if I do horizontal here, it's nice and bright coming down, but then when you pull it back into a ponytail, you get this big stripe coming back. So I like to take this section and softly just foil it in to make it, when she pulls it back, it's not stripy, it's a nice soft solid blonde around her face. Okay, along her hairline. That, so that this, sometimes I'll lighten this and not this, depending on how bright they wanted it, because this sits on the client's face, this doesn't. So when they do have it down, this will be brighter on their face than compared to this. So if they want something more soft, but then when they pull it back, this will be hitting their face first. So now I'm going to pull this up along the hairline, soften that. So now, got this nice corner here from this pivot, from that pivot in the front. From here, that's the pivot. I'm going to take this corner. Okay, so now, again, from that pivot in the front of her head, so from the front, kind of looks like a pizza slice now on the top, right, to where the front is. Okay, so I'm going to take another section and go, I pull the hair towards this point of light here that I want to be at here in the front off of her hairline. I pull it all forward so that each time I get more horizontal and closer to the point of light. When I first started, that's how I would figure it out the best. So these I'm just leaving because I'm bending them over the head shape. You can see how the head shape changes, so I'm not lifting them up because if I lift them up and move them, it's going to create bleeding. So I'm just going to leave them. If it's someone's hair that you have to like flip up and down, you would want to do this section in 2 foils. So now again, creating that like pizza. And then pull the corners in. Okay, so now slowly but surely getting more horizontal. Taking that section again, pulling it all towards the front. You can see I'm going to take it in the middle of that and go straight to that point where the hairline is. And then our next section will be straight horizontal. Okay. So if her head was bigger and it was like way too wide, I would just still section her hair. And I would still weave so that I get the same weave. And then I would take this section and separate it so that it's the same weave, so that you know it's going to be consistent, but then it's going to be in two different foils so that it's on the head shape correctly. But right now this section is small enough where I can go in and just place a foil. And you don't want to pull down too much, because if you pull down, then it's going to push on the foil underneath it, causing that to slip, and then you'll get bleeding that way as well. So I'm only pulling down, out. I'm not pulling down that way, because then I don't want it to cause any slippage for the foils underneath. So this one's not too much wider than the round of the head, so I can lift it up. And then we'll do our horizontal section. So if someone wanted it like super duper light, I could go in and do like one more foil, but she wants it nice and subtle. Nice and blonde, but nice and subtle still. So these spots, oh well, you can see it, that right there, where the bleach isn't on any hair, that's a waste of bleach. And if you go in that right there, if you were to sandwich that, that can squeeze out the side of the foil. So either push it towards the foil or just take it off, because that's wasting bleach and gonna create bleach coming out the sides, which is then gonna create spotting on the other hairs that we don't need. So this one was quick and easy. I think I only put 1, 2, 3, 4 foils on the top and 5 foils down here. So I only put in 9 foils on this one side of the head. If I were to have gone in like horizontal, I would have had to have added way more foils. So this is a nice, quick way to get someone nice and bright with adding less foils. Sometimes less is more. Now we're going to go in and do this side of the head. On this side, I'm going to do just diagonal back the whole way up. For someone that wants that like stripy but blendy look, where it's kind of streaky, where you can like see the pieces of the blonde, but then they don't want that like chunk from when you do like verticals on the top in the mohawk section. They don't want hard chunks coming down, but they do want to see some nice like ribbons of color. So here I'm going to keep on, so when your client is looking straight, I'm going to keep, I take this corner, right? So I take the hair, and I usually like to pull it all forward and kind of get my angle and kind of go decipher it from this way the hair is like evenly, so I'm not pulling it down, I'm not over directing it this way, I'm pulling it straight out from like right at like the temple here. That is where I'm going to get my angle, because then I just want to go the same angle the whole way up. So I'm not over directing it this way and going the same that way, because that then turns into almost vertical sections. And I'm not going this way because then that creates horizontal. I'm pulling it right in between horizontal and vertical. Right in between that, I'm going to go at a diagonal from here. Okay? So now I'm going to take this section, keep it there, pull it out, keeping my angle. Okay, keeping the angle of the section. So the difference between this is instead of changing my sectioning for a point, I'm keeping my angle and my section the same at an angle the whole way up. So if I pull it out, angle. So since this mannequin has such a small head too, I don't have to take, sometimes if I get up to like the round of the head, I will do the 2 foils on the round, especially like right here at the parietal ridge. And then here sometimes you can do like the teardrop where it gets, or sometimes you can do the like high point to low point and make it even more dramatic and even softer. Still keeping it at the angle, but then angling your foil even more from high to low to where it then creates even softer and kind of keeping some dimension like right in there. And try that out and see what that is. Okay. And then again, going it all forward. At some point too, I can just kind of follow the same angle. I like to kind of look and keep it on track, making sure that I'm staying within the same angle of where I want to be. So I'm going to do this one right here, kind of going along the hairline at the same angle. And then I don't want there to be a dark spot on the hairline there, since it is like in the same section, so I'm going to do one right there as well. The foil is just not quite big enough for it. Here, you can see the start of the foil almost looks like I'm kind of going at a vertical. But then when the hair comes down, it's going to create still a nice light to where if I were to have gone vertical on the head, it would look like stripey coming down. To where this is not going to look stripey, but it is going to give it that point here of light so that when it does come down, though, it creates still a sheet of light, but it's softer. And it's softer than doing like a horizontal section too. So if I were to go horizontal, that's just straight down from the head. So this creates softness because it's going more with like the round of the head as well. To where if the head was any bigger, I would have to take 2 sections. Right here I always like to make sure that that point gets nice and light, because then that is what makes it look like it's on scalp. If that gets forgotten about, then it looks like it's already grown out. That's a huge thing that people notice the most when you do diagonal backs. If you miss that point, it looks like it's already kind of grown out. So here with the diagonals, when the section gets pretty small like that, right, I'm going to take it, I'm going to do 2 foils still. So I'm going to do one there and then one just right on top. So that last foil is going to get real small. But I don't want to just leave a black hole on top, right? So keeping my sectioning consistent. Okay, so now, oopsies, I've got just this little section here that I don't want to just leave dark. So I'm just going to do an itty bitty foil just right there on the top. So when I remix, this is a lot more liquidy. These are kind of springing back up. I like to do, so they're kicking back up because it's so thin of lightener right now that it's sticking up. It's not anymore because I saturated it enough. But if someone has a thicker texture, the bleach will, if it's too runny, it'll just kind of like fight you. But if it's thick enough to kind of weigh it down and lay it down, it's better. And thicker is quicker. So if you want to get through it quicker, making your lightener thicker so that it lightens quicker. And then here, you can kind of see where that would have bled. So I'm going to cover that so it doesn't bleed on it. Okay? Now, you can see how when our hair is straight. So you can see, you can kind of picture it. When her hair is down, this is going to be a sheet of light, but it's not going to be like that on this side because it'll be a sheet of light when she turns her head. So when she's looking straight, it'll go like almost kind of like a short to long, but it'll be super soft with still showing a sheet of light since the angle is this way, not this way. So if I'm holding my hands where the foil is placed, you can see how differently that's going to lay and how that's going to lay. To where they both lay down and it'll still be nice and bright, but you can just see how my angle of how this is going to come straight down and this is angled to go forward towards her face. That makes sense. I'll show you guys once. I'm going to let her sit and process for a few minutes, and then I will blow dry and then kind of explain and show that points of light and the sheets of light and stuff like that as well. Okay, so I just washed her and blow dried her. So this is the side that I did the pivoting on, where I did like little pizza shapes almost and made it horizontal. You can see how it's kind of just more like solid on this side. They're both very soft, but you can see like this is the side that we did the diagonal back. So you can see where there's like a strip there to where it's like almost kind of chunky, but it's so soft because it's at a diagonal to where you're still getting a sheet of light. It's really hard to tell the difference. There you can see like the strips to where this is more of just a solid sheet and not so many just little strips of color throughout. I feel like, but like if you look at the side, let's see if I can turn her head. Like you can see how there's that chunk of like low light coming through. And on like this side, you don't get that as much. It's more of an even sheet of light just because by the time I got up to like the hairline, I was going more horizontal and not so much at an angle like on this side. So this side definitely has just a little bit more depth to it and dimension, but they're still both super soft. You can see how the back just blends really nicely with it as well. And then from doing the pieces in the back, if I were to put her hair up, you can see how it's just nice and soft around like her hairline. Just from doing those hairlines around, or the foils around her hairline as well. You can just see how nice and soft it is, and like that's a V, just because it's so nice and blended and soft. But then when it comes down, it's nice and dimensional and just super soft. But again, even when I turn it like that too, you can kind of see just more dimension throughout. See how that is just super soft. And then when you do this side, it'll also be soft, but just a little bit more chunkiness just because it stayed at the diagonal going up. This side is just a lot softer because I went around her whole hairline like with like a money piece almost and created that nice softness. So even, so yeah, I probably only put like 15 foils in the back, like 6 or 7 on the side for the diagonal back, and then 9 on the side for the points of light. Vertical sections too. Vertical sections on the top of the head, especially when you do like chunks, those create the most ribbon, but they're a lot harder to soften. So the diagonal back is nice to get that like chunk, but still soft. When you do the vertical, and if you want it to be balanced, like vertical sections on the top is really easy to get obviously balanced on each side. Because when you think, if you take a section here, right? Like if this was a foil that I was placing, right? When you pull it back, it's nice and bright, right? If she were to put her hair up in like a ponytail or something. But then when she brings it down, it turns into a stripe. So doing the diagonal back helps give you that like stripey look, but soft because it just rounds the head. This points of light one, where you're pivoting, gives you both. So you get the horizontal line, which gives you the sheet, but then also gives you nice dimension and not so much chunky pieciness. So if your client wants more of a chunky pieciness but like blended, I would definitely do a diagonal back or tease like this root area here. Go in and like tease all of that to soften the vertical section. So that when it lays down, it's at least blurred and softened out the root. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to either text me or even just comment on the YouTube channel too, and I can try to help answer any questions at all. Okay guys, there you go.